Okay, first of all, welcome everybody. I was hoping to have a little bit bigger crowd, but I know it was late notice. A lot of people may not have checked their emails this morning, seeing the text, or they may have still been working or whatever. My goal today is to kind of help you guys understand how we approach training. You know, if you were on the call on Wednesday, you know sort of what training involves and some of the expectations. So what I want to do is really kind of talk a little bit about the training, but really talk a lot about the process and what it takes to really be great at what we do. One of the things you will learn about me is that I always assume that you want to be great. I will never coach you. Derek, your productivity coach, will never coach you to be average. We're going to coach you to be great. If you decide that greatness is not what you're after and you want to be mediocre, that's your option. But we're never going to assume that. So the first thing right out of the bat, I want to tell you is before you get started with training, make a decision to be great. You know, some of you have been entrepreneurs before. Some of you have always worked for somebody else. And there's an entirely different mindset when you're running your own show. And it's really what makes the difference between achieving the things you want to achieve and not. So the first thing is it starts with a decision to be great. And it's a decision we have to make every day. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have tremendous presentations. We're going to meet with jerks. It's all going to be a roller coaster. But if you make the decision every day when you get up that today I'm going to be better than I was yesterday, you will see amazing success. And what we're talking about here is not just about BVM. It's about life in general. Everything that happens to you in life, you can view one of two ways. You can either view it from a negative perspective, the world's out to get me, this isn't going to work, I suck, I can't do this. Or you can view it as this is an opportunity for me to move forward and be great. And I encourage you to always choose the latter. And to go from there. So as we move forward, make that decision. Make that decision that I'm going to be great. And understand that everything we do, and when I'm talking about we, I'm talking me, the division manager, the market manager, if you have one. Some of you might have a market manager, some of you won't. And the company as a whole and your coach, we always coach you to be great. At no point are we ever going to, allow you, well, I mean, it's your choice, obviously, but we're never going to assume that you just want to be average. And what does great mean? We're going to talk a lot on this call about what great means as a BVM publisher and what it means really in life, but really with a BVM publisher. So from that, I want to talk about your support system. Here's what you've got. Because I'm transitioning from the Bluegrass division to the Lone Star division. I've been with Bluegrass for the past 6 years. Well, actually, I became division manager in 2016. And at that time, there were only 2 magazines in Kentucky and Tennessee. Now we have one of the biggest, most successful divisions in BVM, approaching 50 magazines in Kentucky and Tennessee now. Lindsay Stafford is going to be taking over. Lindsay is the current, actually, we've got about a day and a half left in 2022. She is going to be the rookie of the year. She's in first place rookie of sales. She's had she went to the same training class you guys are going to, the first one of last year, and she's going to finish the year almost at $1.3 million in sales. So she's going to be the division manager for the Bluegrass. Your coach in the Bluegrass is going to be Melissa Cook, longtime friend of mine. She actually was the first publisher to sell $1 million in a year in Florida back in 2013, 2014. Now she's a productivity coach working there. On the other end, you guys in Texas, I'm going to be your new division manager. Derek Lacrone, who's also a longtime friend of mine, is going to be your coach. So those will be your main support systems. Also, in addition to that, some of you will have market managers. We still have that opportunity there. As we grow, we're trying to establish more market managers because that actually will give you local support with somebody you could actually meet for coffee if you needed to. And so in the places we have market managers, those will be your immediate support. In the places we don't, it's a tremendous opportunity for you guys to step up and maybe become that leader down the road to help other people build their magazines. Now, the way we're going to communicate primarily, now you're always welcome to call any of us, but the way we're going to communicate primarily is when you come out of training, we're going to establish a group text between you, me or Lindsay, your coach, and your market manager if you have one. Now, the reason we do that is because we want that to be your main source of communication, because we want to make sure that if you've got a question or you're sitting in front of a client and a client asks you something you don't know the answer to, you can get that answer immediately. And by having it as a group text, you can just send that text and one of the rest of us will be able to get back to you. You know, if you just have one line of communication, there may be a chance where I'm in the middle of something or your coach is in the middle of something and we can't get back to you. But by having all of us on the same stream, it increases the chances that we'll be able to answer you immediately. Now, I will tell you one thing I'll go ahead and say is if you ever are in that situation, if you're sitting in front of a client and you know that you're going to be able to close that partnership if you just get an answer right now, text 911 to that group text. And if we see a 911 pop up, we know that a sale is on the line and you need an answer immediately. And if that's the case, one of us will drop what we're doing and get back with you as soon as possible. The other thing you might get some individual text from me or your coach or your market manager. Make sure you have those numbers logged in your phone, because those are going to be the ones that will get you, immediate response if you need something. You're also going to get a bunch of text from the company. And sometimes I will send a text from the company. And if it's one I'm sending, it will have JP at the bottom of it because I always sign it. And if you get that, and make sure you save that number in your phone as well. It'll always come from, in my case, I think it'll come from a 262 area code. That's our group text system that allows me to send out a message to everyone in the division at once. And sometimes it might even have your name on it, but it'll be a group text. You're welcome to respond to that one, but just know you won't get an immediate response from me because I only see those responses when I log into the system. So if you reply to that, you will get a response. It just may take a few hours before we get back to you. So the best thing is going to be to either send stuff to the group text or the individual text if you need a quick response. You will also get text from our regional manager, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And occasionally you'll get a text from the CEO through that system. And just know that a response will be seen, but it may take a while. The other thing you will see regularly from that group text are some sales reports. We try to recognize everybody who's having success because we want you to know that other people are out there making sales. Because sometimes you may think, oh my gosh, it's New Year's Day. Nobody's going to buy anything on New Year's Day. And then you see that sales come in. The other reason we do that is because we want you to see the business types that are buying. Because sometimes you'll get caught up in thinking there's nobody else to call. And then you'll see a text come across from maybe where somebody sold a personal fitness trainer yesterday. And it'll remind you that, hey, I haven't called the personal fitness trainers yet. And it gives you ideas of other business types that not only you can call, but business types that are buying and are good fits for our magazine. So pay close attention to those to recognize the people who are having success. And one of the things I will encourage you to do as you get more ingrained in the system and you get to know more people, when you see that somebody else in your division or maybe your market had a sale yesterday, reach out to them and say congratulations. It'll make them feel good. They'll reply back, thank you. And it really just kind of creates this sense of teamwork and camaraderie. You know, one of the great things about our structure is everyone benefits from the growth of everybody else. When somebody else in your market makes a sale, guess what? Our brand is expanded. More people are familiar with our magazines. And so many times sales come from familiarity. And so everybody benefits from the success of everybody else. And that is an amazing culture. And I like to celebrate that and engage with it very often. Now, things to keep in mind as you're going forward. Number one, this is your business. I'm not your boss. This is your business. You're an independent contractor who's building a business of your own. Keep that in mind. Because that's something, and that actually is something that can really help you connect with some of your potential customers, because you're going through the struggles as a business owner that they're going through as business owners. It's a whole lot different mindset than if you're just selling the ads for somebody else. This is your business. My company is Neighbor to Neighbor Marketing. Yes, I work with BVM. BVM is a partner with me in my company, but ultimately I'm building Neighbor to Neighbor Marketing that comes into play, and you'll build your company as well. This is not a side hustle, especially if you're a publisher. If you're coming into this thinking this is like, say, selling Avon that you can do a little bit on the side, or Rodan and Fields or something like that, don't view it that way. I mean, we have publishers who are making $50,000 and $60,000 a month off their magazine. Take it seriously. I want you to be great. There's nothing that would make me happier than if every person on this call looks up a year from now making $200,000 a year. And that's potential is there if you treat it like a business and not something you do on the side when you've got a few extra minutes. So take that very seriously. Number 3, you and only you will determine your level of success. One of the things that I focus on all the time is helping you realize that your success or failure is in your hands. If you sleep to noon, get up, make a couple phone calls, do 2 presentations a week, guess what's going to happen? Nothing. If you get up, have a regular routine, make 30 or 40 phone calls, do 3 presentations a day, guess what's going to happen? You're going to make more money and have more success and live a happier life than you ever imagined possible. And I am a testimony to that. So you and only you will determine your level of success. We have grown magazines during the 2008 depression. We've grown magazines through COVID. We launched magazines when the rest of the media world shut down and wasn't even trying to sell, because we had people who were doing the work. Your success and your effort alone is going to determine what you achieve. And always remember that. The model works. We've launched 1,100 magazines in the last decade. The model works. Don't try to do it on your own. Don't try to do it your way. I mean, you're welcome to, but you won't have the level of success, or at least you're not guaranteed the level of success that you will have if you simply follow the program. You might have some success. I know a couple people in my division that basically would rather fail doing it their way than follow a program somebody else set up. And if you're like that, you're more than welcome to. One of them actually probably makes about $150,000 a year and has made his way work. But his way might not work for anybody else. We know the way we teach it works. Follow the program. And then finally recognize that what we do is very simple. but it's not easy. If you're going into training next week thinking that you can half-ass it and have an amazing magazine, get that out of your head. What we do is very simple, but it is hard work. And it's not hard work like digging a ditch or working power lines in an ice storm. It's hard work because it messes with our minds. Any type of sales position, any type of entrepreneurial opportunity creates internal struggles. We all have a voice inside our head that is an absolute jerk. We all have that voice. And when you're running your own business, that voice gets incredibly loud. It starts to tell you you suck and I can never do this and I'll never be one of those people that makes good money. And you have to wrestle that voice. You have to fight it every day. And one of the things that we will work on is developing systems to keep that voice out of your head and keep you moving forward to success. So always remember that. Now, the training schedule. Next week's training schedule, because it's a holiday week, is a little bit off, so I'm not sure of the exact hours. You will get emails every morning with a fresh login link to use. You must complete the assignment. There's modules. We've really evolved our training systems because of COVID. Prior to COVID, we used to do all of our trainings in Milwaukee at our corporate headquarters. And so everybody who wanted to do a magazine packed up, they got to Milwaukee, they were there. We had some bonus money to help cover the expenses, but you had to be there. Now you work from home, and we've had to evolve that training. It will probably be the most inclusive, most complete training you've ever participated in, but you need to stay engaged with it. So plan on keeping your camera on at all times. And I'll tell you why. You will find that we look at data on everything, and we tracked individual people, how often they kept their camera on versus how often it was turned off. And in the course of the entire year, we did not have a single person launch a magazine who kept their camera off the majority of the time during the training. And we all know why, because when the camera's on, we're engaged. When the camera's off, we're multitasking. We're messing with the kids, we're doing other things, we're playing on our phone, we're texting, and you can't be disconnected from the training and expect to have any chance of success. It's as simple as that. And if you miss more than an hour, you got to reschedule and come back to the next class, because we know what we do requires a level of understanding that if you disconnect from the training, you're simply not going to have. And we're not going to waste our energy on people who aren't fully engaged with the desire to be successful, and being engaged with training is what it takes to be successful. Second, after the training, there'll be some additional advanced training classes. Most of them you'll be able to take on your own time. There is one that will probably be the following Monday that is required for you to get the bonuses. So make sure you pay close attention to that, because here's what I want to focus on. I want every single person who goes to training to get their bonus money. We have that money budgeted to help you guys transition to the time when your magazine goes to print and you start making money. Make sure you get that. Now, you guys we're changing the bonus structure starting with the next training class, but you guys really have an opportunity much easier than the future folks are going to have to get their bonus and take advantage of it. You are going to get $500 a week for the first 4 weeks simply by doing 10 appointments each week. Just by doing the appointments. It doesn't require you to make any sales. It's just by meeting with 10 business owners a week. The first 4 weeks, you're going to get $500 a week. Make sure you do that, because here's the deal. If you can't make yourself pick up the phone and do those appointments with $500 just for doing what you know you should do anyway, you're not going to be able to do it afterwards for free. So it's a great way. We do that to set you up with the habit of getting those appointments regularly, because nothing happens without presentations and appointments. Nothing does. That's where it all has to start. And so really make a focus. Now, each of those first 4 weeks, if you do those 10 appointments, you get $500. If you make one sale, you get another $500. So for the month of January, and actually that would include the first week of February, or at least half that first week, you've got a chance to pick up $4,000 by just doing 10 appointments and making a sale each week. After that, you've got an additional $2,000 that you can pick up depending on what your position is. Those who are trying to launch new magazines, that extra $1,000 is based on reaching 50% of baseline and 85% of baseline. And if you're taking over magazines, a little different. And if you're selling for an existing magazine, it's a little different. So you'll be told what those are going into the things, but make it your point. One of my pet peeves is leaving money on the table. And when there's $1,000 a week staring each of you in the face, that half of it you get just by doing the work, I absolutely hate it to see it go wasted. So make sure you engage in that. Some terms you should know going forward. Terms you should know. Number one, publisher. And a publisher is someone who's gone through the process and has a live magazine. So if your magazine is actually showing up in mailboxes, you're a publisher. An associate publisher is someone who's in the process of launching a magazine, but hasn't sold enough to cover the baseline and make the magazine reel yet. If you are an associate publisher, which I think most of you are, that term is strictly internal to BVM. As far as your community is concerned, as far as your business cards are concerned, you are the publisher of the magazine you're building from day one. Do not put associate publisher. The public doesn't care. That's strictly an internal term. So to the world at large, you're the publisher of your magazine from day one. The other term you might hear is a flip publisher, and we do have a few flip publishers going through training this time. That is someone who is taking over an existing magazine. Sometimes we have people who will launch a magazine and then decide maybe it's not quite right for them, or maybe it's too much work, or whatever, and we have to find someone else to take over that magazine. That new person coming in is called a flip publisher. So you'll hear that occasionally. That's a tremendous opportunity, because in a flip publisher role, you start earning commissions almost effective immediately because the magazine's already in print. You may hear the term fairway publisher recommended. That is for somebody that's coming into a magazine that's partially developed. Maybe there was an associate publisher who made several sales and then just decided it wasn't quite for them. And so that person can come in and kind of pick up where the other person left off. And then finally, you will have people who are account executives. And these are folks who simply sell into other magazines. So that's important. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the company structure, so you'll have an understanding of it. We are actually two companies in one. Best Version Media is the company that does the magazines and BVM Sports, which is our own sports site that you guys won't deal with initially, but down the road when you get your magazines launched, we're building out a nationwide sports program that all the magazines can participate in, and you'll be a part of that. The sports site and the magazines fall under our company, Best Version Media. The second company that you're a part of is DTS, Digital Targeting Solutions. These are the digital campaigns. All of our campaigns come with the print approach for building the brand, as well as a digital aspects on Google and Facebook. And we're developing some other digital products as well that fall under the DTS solutions. Our goal is to continue to develop the best possible marketing solution for our advertisers. And so the reason those two are separated is because some bizarre rules with Google and Facebook, we can buy impressions cheaper as a digital company than we can as a print company. So that's why we're two separate companies. With that, it allows us to provide a better, more affordable product to our advertisers. Okay, now within that, our founders, you'll hear three guys talked about often who founded the company: Dave Durand, Pete Erickson, and Paul Lubinsky. Now, they don't have as much to do with the day-to-day operations as they used to. They've kind of stepped back a little bit. Dave is our former CEO. He's really the one who ultimately made BVM happen. Prior to BVM, he was a corporate coach and motivational speaker, right there with like a Tony Robbins, those kind of people. You know, the $20,000 an hour to go meet with a management staff kind of person. And he developed our structure for our company where everybody benefits from the growth of everybody else. And you'll still hear Dave occasionally on conference calls. Every Wednesday, he does a conference call with a question and answer. Probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in terms of understanding human nature. So anytime you have an opportunity you hear that Dave Durand's going to be on a conference call, make sure you find a way to be on it. Our current CEO is a guy named Kevin O'Brien. Kevin started about the same time I did. He started about the time I moved into leadership. He is one of the most giving people you will ever meet. Kevin's just, if you ever meet Kevin, he's going to reach up and hug you. He's going to say, hey, what do you need for me to be successful? Our company is based on servant leaderships. All of our leaders view their positions as their role is to make sure they provide the best opportunity for everyone beneath them. And it all starts with Kevin because that's the way Kevin approaches it. Our DTS president that you may hear occasionally is Mark Lovis. You may hear his name come up. You'll understand what he is because remember, DTS and BVM are two different companies. Kevin is the CEO of both. Our company's broken into 6 regions. Now, as of today, we have 5 regions. We will have 6. I left somebody off there. I left Northeast off. There's 6 of them. But that's what's changing, and part of the reason me moving into Lone Star and everything, we've grown to the point where we weren't sure we could continue to provide the level of support we needed to for people coming in to do their magazines with 5 regions. So we added a 6th to break it up to ensure that we always continue to provide the leadership. You guys are in the Heartland region. So Mike Glimps is the region manager. And Mike will reach out to you at some point. You'll probably get a call just at random one day from Mike. He likes to touch base with people. He kind of sets as a goal to meet 2 or 3 new people every day. So don't be surprised if sometime you don't pick up the phone and it's Mike calling. Also, if you ever have a problem and you don't feel like you're getting the support from your coach or me or your market manager, do not hesitate to call Mike. He'll give you his number, will be made available. You'll all be getting it. Don't hesitate. Like I said, our structure is our leaders are there to support the people beneath them. So don't ever be afraid to take advantage of that. And then, like I said, some of you will be in a particular market that'll have a market manager. The Lone Star region is broken into division is broken into 12 markets, and we currently only have 3 market managers. So there's a tremendous opportunity for growth there for anybody who might be interested in a leadership role down the road. So keep that in mind. Now, the opportunity itself, I always want you to stay focused on the opportunity that being a publisher with BVM opportunities. The first is you've got the complete ability to control your future. I've said this before. That was one of the things that drew me to the company, was the ability to control my own future. In my last job, I'm going to tell you about here in a second about my story. I realized my future was never in my control. And I wanted something that allowed me to control it. You got an opportunity to develop a significant income with no upper limits. I mean, there is no cap. At no point are we going to say, oh my gosh, she's making too much money, we're going to have to change the structure. We have people, as I mentioned before, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000 a month from their magazines. So it's there. Every time, if you sell enough ads, we add more pages to the magazine. And so you've got that opportunity. You control that ability to grow, which is always nice, because I remember most of my career was spent in corporate America, where I prayed I was going to get a 2% raise every year. Now I have the ability, I have the ability at some point while we've been talking, somebody in the division has increased their income by $14,000, $15,000 a year. I mean, that's just the nature of it. If I set my mind to it right now, I know as soon as I finish up this call, I can make some phone calls, do some presentations, and possibly give myself a $20,000 or $30,000 a year raise by the end of the day. I mean, that's within your power. You've got the ability to influence the community in a very powerful and positive way. A lot of people really take a lot of joy in the fact that they're able to improve their community through the magazine by focusing on the positives and the good things. And then finally, and for a lot of people, this is the most important thing, and I'll tell you, this is what drives me. You've got the ability to help small and mid-sized businesses and business owners improve their lives and grow their businesses. And that is a tremendous opportunity that you should never take lightly. The process, you guys know you're going to training. I just want to recap this real quickly. Starts with the training. You want to hit the ground running. You want to take advantage of that $6,000 that's sitting there on the table with the bonus structure. Make that one of your driving forces. Lindsay, I mentioned earlier, she sold 1.3 million this year. That is her key focus, is she made it her goal to collect every single bonus dollar that was available to her. And as you go forward, there's going to be additional bonuses for selling our best digital products. There's going to be additional bonuses. We always focus that on areas that we're trying to do. Always make it a goal to collect the bonus money, and you're going to have an amazing year. Your first 12 to 15 sales in the magazines are going to go to cover the baseline. The baseline, simply the overhead costs. I mean, every business has a certain amount of overhead costs, and they have to cover those overhead costs before they can actually start making a profit and taking money home. Same thing applies with our magazines. Same thing goes for that. So always remember that. For AEs and flip publishers, your commissions start with the first ad. For those of you who are starting new magazines, if you have magazines close to you, you get commissions for selling into those magazines. You are free to sell into any magazine that you want to. If I've got a magazine in Central Kentucky that is strictly for horse farms. If you've got somebody that makes saddles, you're welcome to sell into that magazine up here and start earning commissions immediately. So know that. And then once you get, a lot of people ask about the content coordinator and all that. Once you get 50% of baseline covered, then we start having conversations about who's going to be your content coordinator, and we handle the training for that. That comes into play. Now, once the magazine launches, you'll be given a print deadline, and that'll be the day that your magazine content and advertising stuff is due every month. And that's also the day that you continue. You can sell right up to 11:59 on the deadline day. And then at the end of each month, we collect from all the at the deadline day, we collect from all the advertisers. And at the end of each month, we take what's collected, deduct the baseline, deposit 80% of your sales commissions back into your thing, and 30% of anything else somebody else might have sold into your magazine that you had nothing to do with. And it's direct deposited. So that's the process. I do want to say real quickly, for those of you who've never been an entrepreneur, never done your own thing, being an entrepreneur is amazing. The freedom you have to set your own schedule and grow your own income is amazing. However, that freedom can be dangerous as well. You have to have the discipline to not allow that freedom to overwhelm you. Because I can tell you, there is going to be a day when you're going to have a bad day. The alarm clock is going to go off the next morning, and you're going to be tempted to turn it off, roll back over, and go to sleep because you just don't feel like doing it today. When you've got a boss, you get out of bed, you go take your shower, you get your clothes off, and you go on and go to the office. So because you know the boss is going to yell at you if you don't get there on time. When you don't have a boss, no one's going to yell at you if you go back over and go back to sleep. And the first time you do it, you're dead in the water, because now you're treating your own business differently. Always remember, think back to the job you've had where you worked the hardest and you had the nastiest boss and you worked your butt off. Now you're working for yourself. Set that effort level that you spent working for someone else to be the minimum you'll work for yourself. Why would you ever work harder for someone else than you do for yourself? Don't ever allow that to do, because that's why being an entrepreneur is amazing, but also being an entrepreneur is hard. Know your why. Know your why. What do I mean by that? Every one of you is doing this for a different reason. For some of you, it's going to be you want to build your future and retire in your 50s. For some of you, you've got kids and you want to make sure your kids have every opportunity that can possibly be afforded to them. They can go to the colleges of their choice. They can do whatever. Know that. Some of you, it's just because you're competitive and you want to be the best publisher you can possibly be, and you just want to show everybody what you're capable of. That's okay. Whatever your why is, make sure you know it and you keep it in mind. If it's your kids, plaster pictures of your kids everywhere so you can see them, so that when you're sitting there not wanting to, you don't feel like doing it that day. You just don't feel like doing it. You can look up and see that picture of your kids and remind yourself why you're doing it and get to work. If you don't always keep your why in front of you, you're going to struggle. You always have to remind yourself of what is the most important thing in my life. Is the most important thing in my life getting my butt out of bed, making phone calls so that my kids can go to the college of their choice? Or is the most important thing you have is getting that extra hour of sleep? If you don't always remind yourself of why you're doing it, you're always going to make the wrong decision. And keep that in mind. I want to take a moment real quickly. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I want to share with you on that why. I want to share with you my journey. Stop sharing here for just a second. I want to tell you about what happened with me and my road to launching my first magazine, because I think there's some lessons in there in terms of being able to do that. I started with BVM after being let go from a position with a newspaper group. My previous job, I was in charge of digital and circulation for a group of newspapers. And I had the staff across several properties and different things. And a new publisher came in, and the first thing he did was say, okay, he pulled me aside and said, okay, we need to downsize. I need you to identify 9 people that we can do without, and then put together a plan of how we're going to handle their jobs. And so I did that, and we had this horrible, horrible, horrible day. And I literally, we went to 5 different properties, fired 9 people. I had to break the news to them. These were people, many of them who'd spent their entire life with the company. And then at the end of the day, I'm sitting there and I look up, we finished the last one, and I'm like, oh, I just am so glad this day's over. And he looked at me and said, well, it's not quite over yet. This is your last day too. And I was so angry that he made me fire all these people before then turning around and firing me. And so I knew at that point that whatever I did going forward was going to be in my control. I wasn't going to put myself in a position where someone else had that kind of control over the future of myself and my family. So I was going to start my own business, and my wife, who's very conservative, that scared the heck out of her, because she couldn't imagine a world when we didn't know where our next paycheck was coming from, or if there was going to be a paycheck. And so I found BVM, and it seemed to be exactly what I was looking for, because it allowed me to have my own business, but also within a structure where I knew exactly what I had to do to make money. So there was a path to an income. So I started work on the magazine. I went to the first person, closed my first meeting. I had a meeting with a little deli. They bought a 36-month agreement, and then that was the end of it. And I was so, man, this is easy. And my presentation was horrible. I stumbled. I didn't do half the things they told me to do at training. And then I came out and decided that I was just going to do it my way, that I made that first sale. And I went 3 months before making another sale. And I'm freaking out doing it my way. And my wife and I got together, and we knew this was the right path for us. We knew this was what I wanted to do. So I turned around and went back to training. And this time I came out of training and I did exactly what I was told to do. I made my 45 phone calls. I got my 3 yeses. In 30 days, I went to print, because I did what I was told. I tried it my way first. My way didn't work. And I went back and did that. And so then I launched my magazine, and I got out of my habits again. I started to struggle. And then my wife went with me to a conference, and she saw what we were building. She saw what was possible with the magazines for the first time. And we came back, and for the next 3 months, every day she asked me, who were your 3 appointments today? Who were your 3 appointments today? And I can tell you, the last thing when she got home from work after a hard day's work that I wanted to tell her was, I didn't do any appointments today. I sat on the couch and watched Netflix, because I had accountability. And the next thing I know, I've got 2 magazines. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. And then I took on leadership, and I ended up doing 2 more magazines, et cetera, et cetera. And now I can think of things financially that I never could even imagine when I was working for somebody else. So there's several lessons I want you to take away from that. I want you to take away that freedom that is there from having your life be in the control of somebody else. and realize that this is a chance for you to be in control. It's a chance for you to be great. The second takeaway from that is follow the program. You might be able to be successful doing it your way, but I can't guarantee it. I can guarantee you success if you make 30 to 45 phone calls a day to get 3 appointments and you do 3 presentations every day. I can guarantee you're going to have the success you want. If you don't, I can't. And then finally, find that person to remind you about why you're doing it, and find that why and have that accountability to make your dreams happen, and keep that in mind. Now, I want to go back to sharing real quickly. I just want to wrap this up. I want to keep this at an hour. I want to talk about what it means to be great. What does it mean to be great? And the first is develop a morning routine that prepares you for the day. It is incredibly easy to get in the habit of just getting up, meandering through the morning, and suddenly you look up and it's noon and you haven't done anything. Have a routine, just like you do when you're working at a job. Get up at the same time, go through a morning routine. I've got one of the things we'll work on is a really effective morning routine to get your head right, because if your head's not right, nothing's going to be right. And do it every day. You open your business at the same time every day. If you were running a store of some kind, you would open the door every day at 8 or 9 o'clock and start your day. Your customers would know when they could find you. You wouldn't just randomly get up. Some days open at 9, some days open at 11, some days not open at all. You would have that consistency. Get in the habit of making those 30 to 40 calls every day to get 3 appointments. It's going to take a lot of calls to get your 3 appointments. Get used to it. You're not going to like it. You're going to hate it. This is going to be the part of the job you despise, but it's part of your job. Every job has parts that you don't like. Accept it. If you try to avoid it, you're just not going to have success. We do offer Tuesday through Friday. I have what's called the Lone Star Call Center, which is strictly an open Zoom call where anybody can get on and just make their phone calls. If you've got questions, we'll be glad to answer them. But for the most part, it just is sometimes nice to use that to establish that routine and see that other people are making calls and struggling with it just as much as you are. Create a calendar and use it. Use your calendar to control your day. And I'll work with you on building a calendar. This is what sort of a base calendar would look like. Those red up there at the top are conference calls. When you get done with training and you finish up, we have conference calls every single day to keep you engaged. And those conference calls, sometimes you might learn something, but that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to establish routine and recharge your batteries after making the phone calls. If you get up and you start making your phone calls at 8 o'clock, you make about an hour of phone calls, hour and 10 minutes phone calls trying to get your yeses, you're going to feel beat down. We all do. I still do. I get on the phone, make calls, lining up appointments. I feel like the world has beat me up by the end of it, because you're always going to get more no's than yeses. It's just the nature of the beast. Accept that and embrace it. Embrace the mundane. And then you get on a conference call, lo and behold, you get pumped back up. You've got some side success talking about what they do. You've got rah-rah, you hear success, and you forget all about those calls. And then you're ready to leave that conference call and go out and take on the world because you're recharged. Being an entrepreneur is all about finding ways to recharge yourself and then take on the day. Continue to engage with your coaches and leaders. Engage with us. Do not only reach out to us when you've got technical problems or you've got a particular problem. Reach out to us whenever you're struggling, because a lot of times people are embarrassed when they struggle. They feel like they should be able to do this without help, that they should be able to figure this out, that they should be able to do this. Well, what happens is you start to spiral downward. Our mind can go to really dark places if we let it. So the moment you feel your mind start to go to those places, reach out to your coach, reach out to your leaders, because that's when we can help you the most. If you wait too long, you get into that funk, then you stop working, and then you get frustrated with yourself for not working, and then you get more down on yourself, and then you do less, and then you get frustrated, and the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're sitting in your underwear on the couch watching some totally ridiculous show because you just don't feel like doing anything. The moment you feel that starting, that's when you call and ask for help. Engage. Attend those conference calls to keep you recharged and focus on doing that minimum of 3 appointments a day. When you're out in the field, do some drop-ins. Sometimes drop-ins, meeting people and introducing yourself can get you some extra appointments, and they can also recharge your batteries a little bit. Constantly evaluate your presentation and your phone scripts. Look at the data. You'll hear me talk a lot about data. Always know how many phone calls you made and how many yeses you got from it, because that will keep you in task. It's going to take you about 15 phone calls on average to get an appointment. And I can tell you, by the time you get 14 rejections or not homes or call me back and all that kind of stuff, you're going to feel like you made 100 calls. And you're going to say, man, I really suck at this. But the truth of the matter is, you should only get one yes every 15 calls. And so you'll find that when you look at the data, you're never as bad as you think you are, because we always want to assume the worst. That's that voice inside our heads. And then constantly practice it. Practice it and get better. If you get an objection from somebody that you don't know how to answer, afterwards, figure out what you wish you'd said. Call me, call your coach and say, what should I have said? Write it down, practice it. So the next time somebody gives you that same answer, you're ready for it. And treat this like a business. Treat this like a business. Businesses open at a certain time and they close at a certain time, and they do business between there. Because you work from home some in this job, you're going to find distractions. Every time a distraction pops up, ask yourself, would I have left work if I were working for somebody else to do that? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. I mean, would you leave work to empty the dishwasher? Of course you wouldn't. Would you empty work because your spouse calls you and said, hey, can you go pick up a gallon of milk real quickly? No, you would pick it up on the way home. Treat your business the same way you would treat somebody else's business, and you'll find success. Finally, the more you learn, the more you earn. I am an absolute big believer in this. I will constantly be finding ways to teach you more, and always look for those opportunities. I will always be suggesting books to read. I'll always be suggesting podcasts to go to. I will always be suggesting ways for you to learn more, because you're going to get better. And some I'm going to suggest right now. The first one's going to be a podcast on YouTube called Durand on Demand. I mentioned Dave Durand's our founder. He used to be heavily involved in training, and we got COVID and we started doing remote training. He's not involved anymore. And so you don't get to hear a lot of his philosophies that founded the company. So he has a series of YouTube videos called Durand on Demand that he wrote for business owners. Has nothing to do with BVM, has everything to do with BVM. The second is a podcast that I did pre-COVID called Small Business in Small Bites. It's an audio podcast that's available on whatever podcasting platform you use. I did this for small businesses because you will learn most small business owners have no idea how to run a business. Now, every single episode of this podcast is based on an objection that I hear in the field when I sell the magazine. So once again, even though it's not about BVM, it is about BVM. because it will help you handle objections, and it will help you help your customers by understanding more about running their business. So I would encourage that. Both Dave's video casts and my podcast there on small business, they're all about 5 minutes long. They're very short, designed to be able to listen to in the car, because small business owners don't have time to listen to an hour podcast. So they're just very quick hitters. And then finally, I also did another podcast for a while called Wake Up to Success. This is all about getting out of your head, knowing that small business owners, that voice gets loud. This podcast was designed to help quiet that voice. So those are some tools available to you. Some books I would recommend reading: Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. It is so in line with what we do, and it'll help you get over call reluctance and realize how much opportunity is out there, how many businesses are out there. Organize Tomorrow Today by a guy named Jason Selk. It is about people who struggle with time management. I am horrible with time management, and the better you can get at managing your time, the better you're going to be. Organize Tomorrow Today is the best book I've ever read about getting your time organized. And then finally, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincera. She actually has two: You Are a Badass and You Are a Badass at Making Money. I would recommend both of them. These are about recognizing the things we do to self-sabotage our success and getting past them. So those are 3 books I would recommend you read. And then finally, as I started this out, just choose greatness. Choose to be great. Make the decision right now, going into next week's training, that I'm going to be great in 2023. And I'm going to take advantage of every tool that's available to help us get there. And what you will learn is the things that you do to be great as a publisher will make you a better version of yourself, and it will bleed over into every other aspect of your life. So, anybody have any questions, comments, things you want to throw in there?
I have a question.
Okay, fire away.
So with
I love your name, by the way. I don't think I've ever met a Talitha.
Oh, thank you. With the 30 to 40 calls we have to make per day, is the 110 they told us to get really realistic, or should we have more than that?
Well, always remember, the more the merrier. The more the merrier. I mean, if you've got more names, but sometimes, that 30 to 40 is also going to include, calls that go straight to voicemail, gatekeepers. So a lot of those 30 to 40 today, probably as many as half of those will be businesses you called yesterday and just didn't get a hold of somebody. So it doesn't mean you've actually talked to 30 or 40 people. It's just it's the number of calls it takes, because you're always going to have a certain percentage of them that just aren't there. It goes straight to voicemail, can't talk right now, something of that nature. So that's why it's not 30 to 40 fresh ones every day. But obviously, the more fresh ones you have, the better you're going to be. I mean, I probably have, I would say in my CMS, I'll also send out a recommendation for a CMS where you keep track of who you talk to and who you haven't, because you can imagine as time goes on, remembering that, somebody told me to call them back next Tuesday, and will I remember it on Tuesday? How do I track all of that? So I'll have some recommendations I'll send to everybody for that. But it's just, I probably have over my years, I guess I probably have close to 2,500 businesses, 33,000 businesses that I've talked to. So that list will continually grow, but the 110 is just a good starting point, kicking it off. I will tell you, one of the things I would recommend you all do to grow that list is first of all, Pay close attention to all advertising you get. You know, you see billboards, you see in other magazines, you hear on the radio, because it's always going to be easier to sell somebody who's currently advertising on the magazine than it is to convince people who don't advertise to advertise in the first place. Because a lot of businesses don't understand advertising, and so the educational aspect is much harder. Still can be done because every business, the difference between a true business and a glorified hobby is they advertise. And so a lot of business owners don't recognize that what they really have is a hobby. So always keep that in mind. The second thing that I would do is notice service vehicles when you're driving around. I remember when I first went to my first training, I left there to go back to the hotel, and I stopped at the stoplight, and there was a plumber in front of me, a heating and air guy to one side of me. Right behind him was a carpet guy. On the other side was a satellite TV installer. And then behind me, I don't remember what the fifth one was. I was completely surrounded by service vehicles that I had never noticed before, because you just don't see them. They just become so amazing. You will swear tomorrow that suddenly 100 service vehicles showed up in your neighborhood that didn't exist yesterday, because you're just aware of them now. So really write that down. A lot of people will just take pictures with their phone, and then when they get home, they'll take those pictures and write down the contact information. What I do is I keep a little audio recorder, like an old school audio recorder, in the seat beside me, so I don't have to wreck while trying to take a picture. And I just reach over, grab it, and I say, Joe's Plumbing, 323-4789. And then every weekend, I give that recorder to my 14-year-old son, and I pay him $10 a week to go in, listen to those, and write them down for me. And so that way I'm always keeping fresh leads like that. So I would do that. I would drive through your neighborhoods when you've got your map and you know who's going to get your magazine. Drive through there, look for yard signs, look for vans in driveways, and just really use that. I would also identify where the closest hardware store, Lowe's or Home Depot or something else, to your area, and then go sit in their parking lot and just sit there, because all these service vehicles that do work in your neighborhoods will go there for parts and supplies. And so you can just write down, I mean, literally you spend 2 hours in a Lowe's parking lot, you'll probably get 300 prospects. Same thing goes if there's a place that's known for really good coffee near your zone, go sit in their parking lot, because all these work crews will stop and get their morning coffee before they go to work. So just be aware of those locations where businesses are on their way to do jobs in your neighborhoods would stop. Did that answer your question?
It did. It answered it perfectly. I wanted to share with you too. I kind of was on the hunt trying to figure out, like, you know, because I just moved to this area. I heard somebody say they've been there 5 years. I haven't even been here barely a year.
Okay.
But look what I found in the gas station.
Oh,
October 2022. It's dated.
Actually, it's funny. What did I do? I got one yesterday. You can't see it because it's zoning out, but I got one yesterday, and I looked through it, and I'm like, who the heck still spends advertising money in the thing? And I'll tell you what that is that literally is just, they've done it for years and they don't understand advertising. And so they simply just do what they've always done because they don't know any different. And so it's a tremendous opportunity. I will tell you, one, I mentioned the podcast and everything. In Small Business and Small Bites, there is an episode that I did called How Google Actually Works. And if you don't get a chance to listen to anything else between now and training, listen to it, because most people grossly understand, most business owners absolutely grossly understand how people make decisions about buying. And you'll hear from a lot of business owners that will say, well, I get all my customers from Google. And that's really a stupid statement. Because think about this for a second. Let's imagine I owned an office supply store sitting on Main Street. And I have one front door there on the street that every single customer that came into my store walked through. That's what Google is. It's the path that people take to get your information, but it's not why they chose to be there. I mean, can you imagine a business owner saying, hey, I don't need to advertise. All I need is that front door. Every single person that comes in my store walks through that door. Why would I ever advertise? They don't take into account what led people to that door in the first place. And when you look at what Google does, or any search engine, or Yellow Pages, or anything like that, or Facebook, or word of mouth, anything, those are all sources that create lists of choices. If I did a Google search for a chiropractor near me, it's going to give me 15 local chiropractors, and that's all it's going to do. Why I choose the chiropractor out of that 15 is what's important. And what our magazine does more than anything else is it gives people a reason to choose that chiropractor instead of the other 14 on that Google page. Because while that chiropractor can say and probably recognize that he got that customer from Google, what he forgets is there were 14 other chiropractors on that same page that were part of the same results that didn't get a customer. And he could have just as easily been one of those other 14. It's the advertising and the marketing and the branding that determines which one of those 14 or 15 I choose. And so understanding that dynamic will really help you deal with customers. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect sense.
Yeah. So I'd really encourage you to listen to that podcast in particular, but there's also one about why Budweiser is considered America's beer. That's really kind of gives you a little different. So much about advertising and marketing is very counterintuitive. And so since business owners very few business owners understand it, they make very bad buying decisions. And one of the things I take very personally as our job is our first and foremost job is not to sell advertising. Our first and foremost job is to help these businesses. And if we walk in with that mindset, I'm here to help this business, it's a whole different sales, because now you're looking to form a partnership rather than just sell them an ad. And you'll find so much more success. Our best publishers are the ones that walk into every business with the intention of helping that business first and hopefully picking up an ad along the way. Because if you do that, you're much more willing to have a honest conversation with that business rather than a sales pitch. And that's something that I really work with people on to always keep in mind. Anybody else got any questions? Or do you have another question, Talfa? Either one. Okay, well, sounds good. Next week in training, like I said, near about midweek, you'll get a group text from me and Derek. And just any question you have, ask there, and one of the two of us will get back with you as soon as we can. You got questions, Sophia?
I don't, Don, but thank you so much for this very instructive prep call. I think we got a lot of questions that I had were answered.
Okay. Hey, one thing I want to mention real quickly. I didn't say this, but you also have to. I also want you to understand. Our magazines are the absolute best marketing tool for the businesses we meet with. Now, they may not recognize that, but you need to understand that. And I want to kind of explain why I can say that and why I say that with absolutely no hesitation. We were built to be the best option. Most media started out as the audience first, then the medium, And then the business side of it was an afterthought. We did not start out to be a magazine company. We started out because if you go back to the mid 2000s, the number of small businesses that were failing doubled. It had been 10% for most of history, but between 2000 and 2005, it went from 10% to 22%. And the reason was that was the window when digital advertising went mainstream. And while digital advertising can be very powerful, it's only powerful for the big companies, because to do it right, you have to have A, somebody that knows what they're doing, and B, you have to do multiple platforms, because all of those multiple platforms work together, almost like pieces to a puzzle. So when you do all of them, it creates a really strong marketing campaign. But for a small business, it doesn't. And so they end up doing maybe they do Google search, or maybe they do a Facebook page, or maybe buy a few banner ads here or whatever. So what happens is small businesses end up with a piece to a puzzle without being able to complete the campaign and complete the picture. And so they simply can't reach customers as effectively as the large businesses, and that's why they were failing. So we started with looking at what can we do to even this up. First thing we did was look at geography. If you're a small business, a painter, for example, in Danville, Kentucky, and the core of your customers are going to be in Danville, you'll do some jobs elsewhere, maybe drive an hour or so to paint some, but the core of your customers are going to be very local. The second thing we looked at was profitability. Most people think that our magazines go to high-end homes because they have more money. And that's just simply not always the case. In fact, a lot of the people who live in the neighborhoods that get our magazines are in debt up to their eyeballs. They don't go home and swim in bathtubs full of cash. But research has shown that when you own a nice home, your home's an investment instead of just a place to sleep, and it changes the way you buy things. And it changes the way you buy things in a way that make you a more profitable customer for these businesses. Most businesses in today's world have the volume of customers that they can handle. They can't take any more customers, but they're not making enough money because the majority of their customers just aren't profitable. So we focus on high-end homeowners because research shows that that's where the profit comes from. And businesses can make more profit without actually having more customers by focusing on those. So then we're like, how do we reach these people? We could direct mail to them, but direct mail goes in the trash can. So what if we created a direct mail product that people actually read? And that's where the family on the front cover came from. Because we knew that because the magazines are going to a small area, that if you had somebody on the cover that was connected to the lives of every person reading the magazine, either they shop at the same grocery store, go to the same dentist, kids played against each other in soccer, whatever, that it forced you to read it. So now suddenly we've got the ability to put the business messages in front of the right customers. And then we ask ourselves, how do those customers make their buying decisions? They make their buying decisions off of brands, and whether that business, whether they see them as sharing their values, whether they see them as engaged in their community, whether they see them as experts, and that's how they make decisions. So we built the magazine based on how these profitable customers make decisions. And so everything we do is always based on what's going to be best for our advertisers. So that's how I can look at these business owners and say, this is the best option. Because if there had been a better option, we'd be selling that instead of this. Our product was built based on the needs of the customer, not the other way around. Every other media was based on the needs of the consumer and then tried to force that into fitting the advertisers. And that's a huge difference, that once you understand that and develop the ability to help the customers understand that, you can take your business to the next level. Does all that make sense?
Totally.
It does.
And I think I'm a testimony for that, because those publications really do pique my interest, and they don't make it to the trash. I read them and love the articles and look for familiar names that maybe my kids' friends from school or whatever, but that is totally true.
People read those articles about the feature family and everything else because they want to see how they should know that family. You know,
Agreed.
I mean, and it just engages that. And so there's so much marketing science, and we'll spend a lot of time over the weeks and months to come helping you understand exactly how to relay all of that to the customers. Because once the customers understand that, they absolutely want to be in the magazine. And then it's focused on how to get that customer to feel comfortable enough with their understanding of the advertising to sign. Very few people you meet with will ever not want to be in the magazine. They just can't convince themselves to sign, because people hate making decisions. And one of the things we'll also talk a lot about is understanding that everyone on this planet is driven by their insecurities. And these business owners you're meeting with who know they don't understand advertising, who don't feel like they're qualified to make good decisions involving advertising, will talk themselves out of it if you don't help them feel comfortable. And so we'll talk a lot about developing, getting them excited about the magazine, which is easy, but then the second part is making them feel comfortable with partnering with you for the long term.
Well, ready to learn all of the strategies.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
John, on a call on Wednesday that we hopped on, I don't remember his name, but he mentioned that we should start getting those appointments, you know, first day of training, something like that, to like hit the ground running. Do you, I mean, I guess you agree with that. My question is, given that we have so little information about how to properly address a customer's concerns or questions and whatnot, what would be your I guess top 3 recommendations on how to go about that process? About, you know, and I agree, we want to start getting those appointments in without finishing the training, but at the same time, we don't want to screw up an appointment without having the right tools to go and talk to the customer.
Okay, little bit of misunderstanding about what they said. So let me clear that up. The second day of training, you will have some time not to do appointments, but to make the phone calls to schedule appointments. And by that point, you will have enough information in the scripts and everything to make the calls to set up the appointments. And one of the things you'll learn to do is, you don't want to start talking about the magazine when you're scheduling that appointment, because one of the things you will fight against is people making judgments about whether they're interested without actually understanding what we do. They'll just group us in with other advertisements they've done in the past, and we're entirely different. So that whole calling to set the appointment is literally just to get on their calendar. And you won't be encouraged to do any actual presentations until you get a couple more days in of training and actually learn the presentation part. So that second day, what you're doing is what we have found, and the reason we structure the bonuses the way we do. The natural tendency of people is to want it to be perfect before they do it. So people will say, I tell you what, I'll start making my phone calls, but I really want to practice my script a little bit more, and I want to get it perfect, and you know, I don't want to do a presentation until it's perfect and all of that. And what happens is, they never actually get around to getting started.
Yep.
They look up 3 weeks later and they haven't made any phone calls and they haven't done any presentations and they've forgotten half of what they know. And what works better, not just with BVM, but in life,
Mhm.
we talk all the time about ready, aim, fire. But what actually works better, and you're successful people, it's ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Do it, learn from it, and do it again. And I'll tell you all, and I don't mean this to insult anybody. It's just the way it is, because I know I personally went through this, and every person you meet goes through this. Your first 30 phone calls are going to suck.
Yeah. That's my,
Your first 6 or 7 presentations are going to be horrible. And accept that. I mean, and learn from that. And I will tell you this, I sometimes envy new people getting started, because one of the most powerful tools in sales is vulnerability. And I encourage people to be open with their first several presentations about that. Hey, I've only done a couple of these. Bear with me. I'm still learning. I'm going to screw it up, because that connects you with that customer emotionally in a way that a smooth presentation never can.
In a human level.
At a human level, vulnerability is a powerful tool for sales, because they remember when they started, and they remember how those first few days was when they had no clue what they were doing, and you sharing that you're going through that while you're building your business it connects at such a human level that your chances of closing that deal and forming a long-term partnership with them goes through the roof.
agree.
Yeah. So that's why we want people to hit the ground running. Do it, screw up, learn from it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
No, I think that cleared it for me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are you guys going to be working as a team?
Oh, I'm gonna be honest with you. Sophia's gonna be leading the whole thing. I got a job, but you know, we're both excited. I'm in sales.
He's my system, but I'll be one in training and probably training him.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the reason I say that is I can't even begin to list the number of couples that do this together. Usually what happens is one of them will have another job to keep the bills being paid while the second one develops their magazine.
Right.
And then once the magazine is in print and you're earning 80% commission, the second one comes on board. And I mean, probably half of our top 20 top publishers in the country are husband and wife teams.
That's fantastic. And let me be honest with you, I do see that eventually happening, but like you said, you know, we gotta cover the bills at the beginning. And then, but I've been in several businesses myself before. Some went well, some didn't. And I do look forward to the time where I'm back being my own boss. So that's the goal.
He will hold me accountable at the end of the day, just like your wife did.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Awesome.
Hi, this is Kina. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you provide the this talk, I mean the recording, will it also include your PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, it should.
Would it be
Assuming I
printable?
set it up correctly.
Okay, would it be printable? Because I'd like to print it out and stick it in my notebook.
I tell you what, I can just send you the PowerPoint.
That would be wonderful. That'd keep me going.
I'll just send the PowerPoint out, and you're welcome to have it and go back and you know, go through it occasionally and remind yourself.
Yes, that's what I would like, and make my own notes as I go through the process too.
Okay. I tell you what I'm going to do though. What I'll do is this. I will send out the link to the recording today. I won't send out the PowerPoint till like Monday because I don't want people who've missed the call and are going to watch the recording to think they can just look at the PowerPoint and get the same message.
Okay, that's certainly fine, and that'll make it more available, especially during the training week. So I appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. And if you don't see it by the end of Monday, text me and say, hey, you forgot something. Because I can tell you, I am horrible, and I'll apologize for this in advance. I am horrible for the squirrel effect. I get distracted so often and forget to come back. So you guys hold me accountable for that.
Will do, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
John, one last question before I let you go. You guys cover like any guidelines to how to establish oneself as a legal entity like LLC, independent contractor, and those type of stuff?
What we do is we don't initially. We mention it in training, but what we do is once you get to baseline and you get a print date, at that point, our folks will work with you to help you get that set up.
Okay.
Yeah, once the magazine's out there, because we want the magazine in the name of an LLC or a corp.
Okay, sounds good.
I will tell you this, and this is a challenge. I mentioned this earlier. One of my pet peeves is to hear somebody say, man, everybody, I get this objection all the time. And my belief is that as a salesperson in any field, that you should never get stumped by the same objection twice. Because it's kind of the old shame on you, shame on me kind of thing. You know, the first time you get it, maybe it comes out of left field, you didn't expect it. But if you get it once, you know you're going to get it again. So practice, decide what you're going to say. I touched on this earlier. Practice it, practice it, practice it. Because there's really, both on the phones and in the presentation, there's about 7 or 8 objections you get on the phone and about that same number you get in person on the presentations. And if you master how you're going to react and answer those 14 objections, you're unstoppable. So always keep that in mind. Whenever you hear an objection, get it. And then if you start to hear an objection often and you end up finding yourself having to handle the same objection over and over again, it's more than likely because something in your presentation is creating that objection. And that's when we'll listen to a presentation, we'll work together and figure out what you're doing to initiate that. Because it usually, a lot of times, Dave Durand, our founder, has this little story he tells about the guy that comes home, walks in the door after being at work all day, and his wife is just furious at him. And so he looks at her and says, is this about the golf clubs? And then suddenly he's now got 2 problems. She didn't know about the golf clubs a second ago. Now she does, and she's mad at him for 2 reasons. And the reason that that's so relevant to what we do is a lot of times you will kind of add things to your presentation,
right,
which plant the seeds for that objection to come up later on.
Right.
And so I work with folks a lot of times. We do role plays to kind of identify what you're saying that's causing the client to react that way.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. You create another problem.
Yeah, you do. You do. And I've heard people that half their presentation will just be opening the door for objections.
Right.
And then we'll fix that and their sales will go through the roof.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I got a 2:30 I got to jump on, or 1:30 your time. So if you have any other additional questions, don't hesitate to text me, call me. We're here now to make sure you're in the absolute best position to be successful.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay.
And good luck to everybody.
Happy New Year, guys.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you Tuesday.
Happy New Year. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.